we'll call to order the Stevensville Town Council meeting for Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. Ms. Bertha, will you mind calling the roll, please?
Councilmember Devlin. Here.
We'll turn it down a little bit.
Hold mine.
It wasn't yours.
No, it was mine.
Holy cats. You got right to that point.
Well, which one do you have underneath? If you look underneath. 3.
Yeah, not how we anticipated starting this.
I did not need that one.
And Councilmember Vick.
Here.
Jamie, which number are you?
On mine.
5. That's really scary.
We just turned yours off.
Thanks. I won't need it.
Okay, thanks for your indulgence in that. Sorry about that. I ended up with the old public comment mic, and that one was dialed up a little bit higher than the rest. So just as a quick housekeeping item, before we get into the rest of the agenda, please do make sure you use your microphones this evening, including public comment, because we have folks on the phone, including the city attorney. It's important they're able to hear us. So just keep that in mind. Also, we use this facility at the grace of the North Valley Public Library. They have a mask wearing policy. So we do ask that if visitors, please abide by that policy and wear your masks. It is a ground rule set by the city council as well. So we appreciate your cooperation in that regard. If you need to dismiss yourself to grab a mask, that's perfectly acceptable. All right, if you please rise and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I won't call you again. All right, we've reached the item for public comments from citizens on items not on tonight's agenda under the jurisdiction of the town of Stevensville. Is there any public comment?
Bob Michelson, 222 Turner Street. I'd like to say that, I don't know how to say this really, but how shocked I was and just appalled when I heard the news that 2 other contracts or service agreements that Mayor Dewey called it were brought before the town. And I have to say, Brandon, this is the new one. It really is, sir. To have 2 contracts come before again after what this town went through last summer is, I don't know if you just wanted something so bad you did it again, or if you just don't care about the policies and procedures of the town of Stevensville. It's a state.
Point of order. You can't be attacking people, correct?
I'm not attacking them.
That isn't,
I'm not
but that
attacking.
isn't true information that is being stated.
Mr. Michelson, if I may, you will probably receive answers to whatever questions you have in regards to the 2 claims under the claims section of tonight's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more thing though, unrelated. I will say that the $69,000 3-year contract for my sidewalks is something that the whole town is very upset about. They don't think it's the thing that we need. And if you guys want to be heroes, if you want to show really class to the town, you would take that 69,000, take what maybe some of the savings we have, getting little or no interest in the town, and pay off our water and sewer bonds and lower our rates for the hard-working citizens of this town that are suffering. You could all be heroes if you did this instead of doing a $69,000 contract. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment not on tonight's agenda?
it baffles me that we're not allowed to say anything against any of you, because I've been down to town hall twice now and been screamed at, once by the mayor and once by Laura, who yesterday told me I was a horrible, angry old woman as she was screaming at me. She wanted Robert to have me evicted. He looked at her like, what? So I'm going to read something you may not want to hear, and I don't think you can make a point of order about it, but you can try. I put this on Facebook. Open letter to the town council of Stevensville. We have a weak mayor form of government. All the mayor is allowed to do is manage employees and conduct council meetings, period. Yet you sit there and see to every illegal manipulation the mayor proposes. You are the ones who spend the available monies. You are the ones who grant contracts, not the mayor. Oh, ye of short memories, remember the recall last fall? It was about an illegal contract signed by Mayor Dewey. The district judge called it official misconduct, and here we are again. 2 contracts signed in the past few weeks, no RFPs. Do you know what that means? No council input.
So this is part of order. This is unsupported allegations. That's
It is not
true.
unsupported. And please don't interrupt me, Jamie.
These are untrue, and it says right on our guidelines for public comment, no attacks.
No council
and you
input,
cannot have
no
unsupported
opening of
allegations.
bids,
Ms. Rodabout.
no city attorney involvement. This is the council's fault.
Stevensville does not
If
have
you
a strong
cannot do
mayor or
your
leader.
jobs,
Ms. Rodabout, I'm gonna ask you to step away from the.
carry out your,
If you can't.
you don't have that authority.
Well,
Then why
I
are
do.
you sitting here?
Ms.
You all
Rodabout,
need to
Ms.
resign.
Rodabout, if you
I'm done
cannot
now.
maintain your decorum.
You took longer than you needed to trying to interrupt me than I was going to, I would have been done.
Is there any other public comment on items not on tonight's agenda?
Jamie?
Can we address that? I'm not gonna sit here and be spoken to or about
I
like
just
that.
got spoken.
Ms. Rodabout, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm being extremely patient. Okay, I've been more than patient with you.
No, you haven't.
I have. So if you cannot retain your composure in this meeting, you'll be asked to leave. We'll adjourn and you'll leave. That's how this will work. You're not here to attack this council. You're not here to attack me, and you're not here to attack staff. That's not what we do here. Thank you for listening to us and abiding by the ground rules that the council has set on the back of their agenda. We'll move on. We have approval of the minutes from March 11th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from March 11th, 2020.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Devlin, seconded by Mr. Sherd to approve March 11th meeting minutes. Council discussion? Public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Burkhead?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherd.
Aye.
And Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
All right, next up is the approval of the biweekly claims. You have before you biweekly claims number 16534 through 16716.
I want to make a motion to separate out claim 16697 to discuss separately.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Mr. Sherd to separate claim number 16697 to consider separately. Any council discussion on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Burkhardt?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherd. Aye. And Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. So what we need at the very least then is a motion to approve claims 16534 through 16716, so omitting 16697.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Devlin to approve biweekly claims 16534 through 16716, excluding 16697. Council discussion on the claims. Any public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Bertha.
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherman. Aye. And Councilmember Vick.
Aye.
All right, you have before you then claim number 16697.
I just have a couple of questions about the whole My Sidewalk thing. I know we brought up at the last meeting. I know I said it seemed like a good idea and whatnot at the time. I am just trying to wrap my head around. Is this a contract? Is this a service agreement? What is this? Because it's an awful lot of money that I feel like before it even became something that when it came on the claims, that it was something, it should have been something that came before the council for some sort of more approval rather than how does people feel about it.
So the services offered are essentially approved through a scope of services. So we solicited a scope of services from the sidewalk. And that lists out exactly what we get, what we don't get. That acceptance then initiates an agreement with that organization that they provide us services on a subscription basis annually. Where the annual pricing comes in is that we can give them an idea of how long we're willing to commit. They will adjust the pricing accordingly. So the subscription comes due every year. It is not a you pay it this year and then we're committed for 3 years. The bill or the invoice that you're approving tonight is essentially what is called before the fact, right? So the services, although we've had preliminary meetings with My Sidewalk about the next steps forward, we have not committed the funding. So in policy, specifically, you're going to want to look at section 8, which talks about the approval of purchases. And what it says is payment for any goods or services purchased by the town must be approved by the town council as part of the weekly each claim submitted to the treasurer. I don't have those files with us tonight, but we have all of that together. So you're doing that process concurrently, where you're by approving the invoice, you are approving the purchase of those services on an annual basis.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but under our purchasing agreement, the mayor, no matter who the mayor is, has approval up to $25,000 spent without council approval for certain items.
Sure.
And this would fall underneath that category, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Owens goes into some detail. You all received an email from him today explaining both this issue of the My Sidewalk bill as well as our monthly billing outsourcing that we're doing. So yes, we proceeded with getting an invoice on the services provided before the council, knowing that we were within the budgetary limits of the purchasing policy, and knowing that your approval tonight would give us further green light to further proceed with the project. Folks, don't mind. Thank you.
To me, it also seems like an awful lot of money for us to not for us to send halfway across the country. I mean, I understand there's few and far in between companies that do this. I understand that if we did have staff members that understood how to use programs like Tableau, we could do the same thing on our own. But I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't understand why we're not keeping the money either within Montana, within the Northern Rockies, or even at least the Pacific Northwest.
We did a search for another organization that can provide this service. And there's more to it than just the performance dashboard. So there's the ability to access and ascertain and evaluate or interpret other data sets besides our own. So we don't really have a good way right now to access census data, for example. There's, outside of the census website, we don't have a way to pull that together and put it to any use for our community. This organization gives us that ability. So there is a performance dashboard piece, right? There's that metric piece of the website, but then there's the back-end system that staff, particularly our community development staff, in my opinion, I see it being extremely useful when we come to a rewrite of the growth policy, because a lot of those statistics and all of that data that's in our growth policy, we're currently outsourcing. We contract with another firm to update that for us. We'd be able to do that in-house if we have access to the data ourselves. And you're talking, I mean, in that case, a growth policy revision, the one we did in 2016 was $50,000. So that was a huge benefit to us, and we couldn't find another organization that could provide that benefit for us. We send money all over the country. I mean, that's the reality of it. When there's a sole source type of procurement like this, that's kind of how it works. I mean, it's just happenstance that Black Mountain Software is based on Folsom. I mean, they were at one time they had offices in Missouri actually, and then they closed them and moved their entire operation to Folsom, and that was just circumstances of that company. That there aren't very many, especially technology or software companies, that we're able to even do business with in Montana because they don't exist, and even in the region. So, I mean, for example, our police department software that's through Motorola directly. Our fire department software, I believe, is based out of Illinois. It just happens to be where the headquarters of that firm might be. So there are other organizations in Montana who do business with my sign as well. Downtown Bozeman did a different project, not a performance dashboard, kind of a master planning effort with this organization as well.
Just for, sorry.
I guess my frustration about spending a lot of time talking about this is you made us aware of this almost a month ago. At that time, after the meeting, I contacted you and wanted to know more about the process. I don't know if anybody else did at that time, but I reached out, had a meeting with you about how this looked, what it entailed, and actually got an invite for a meeting that the staff was all invited to, which I participated in. I took a morning off and went into town hall and watched a presentation. Then we were presented with it at a meeting. We all agreed at that time that this was definitely something, knowing the price, knowing something that would help our community out. And now I don't know, the whole town is upset about it. I have heard from one person. And you're mimicking a lot of what that one person said in that email that we all received. Yes, it is our responsibility to speak on behalf of our constituents. But those are all things that came up this morning in that email that we received. So we've had a lot of time and a lot of opportunity to discuss this, to delve into it, to figure out what it is. And now because it's on the claim and we received a response from one person in the community, I'm wondering why we're spending so much time on this.
I'm not gonna argue with you. Yeah, I will say it might sound like the one email that all of us received, but I have spoken to at least 5 or 6 people that are upset about it. I mean, I'm glad we got clarification that it's not really like a set contract or anything like that. But I mean, my issue from the beginning, at the very beginning of it, is I don't see how the town of Stevensville has a data set large enough to utilize a big data analytics. I just don't see it.
That's kind of actually the problem is that we have so much data, can't do anything with it. I mean, we have it. We're working through a process right now where we're identifying and inventorying the data we have, and we know where we're data deficient. In a lot of areas, but then there are areas where we have data that is absolutely useless, but we track for whatever reason. We enter a number into a computer every month, tracking a metric, but we don't really know why we even track it. We just put it in the computer because there's a hole there for it. This is scaled for our organization. So it's not that we're sending them all of our data and then they're interpreting it and we're going to get crazy results out of it. We actually are doing a fair amount of that legwork where we're only inputting data we identify as useful to us. If we don't think the data is useful, then we're not going to track it anymore. And we're going to focus our efforts into tracking data that is useful and going towards metrics that provide a higher level of service for the community and increase satisfaction in terms of what we provide.
All right, and that brings me up to this. I mean, we can do the exact same thing with Tableau for $1,000 a year.
And I don't know what that is.
Tableau is a data analytics software that comes with the ability to publish online. It comes with customer support, just like my sidewalk does. And I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, the only real difference is with Tableau, you kind of do a little bit more legwork yourself. But if you know how to use Microsoft Excel, you shouldn't have an issue with Tableau.
And that was the advantage of my sidewalk was while there is legwork on our end to produce data, there's legwork on my sidewalks end to help us tell the story. So they'll work with us, right? So we are doing workshops with them where they help us identify indicators that match up with strategic planning. And they have, I guess, a planning background and the municipal background and the local government background to help your organization navigate that process so that you're not just purchasing an out-of-the-box software, entering numbers, and then showing someone's graphs. They're helping us put meaning to the metrics that we want identified. I mean, it's our intent to involve the council into what those metrics are. What are the things you want us to identify that demonstrate that we are successful in a certain area or not successful in a certain. It's hard to identify those right now. Objectively. We don't have an objective way to really sit back and say, oh, we're underperforming in this area. We, by and large, gauge our effectiveness as a organization based on opinion that we hear either at the podium or through other public comment channels. We don't have hard data to say, or we don't have a way to interpret hard data to say, this is where we excel and this is where we're deficient. Where do we put our resources?
I found one of the major benefits to the program was increasing transparency between the council, the administration, and the public, which is one of the major concerns that I've heard throughout this town in regards to transparency in our water system and what we're doing within the council and administration. I just wanted to clarify the approval of this claim is for 1 year. Is that correct?
Correct. In a year from now, you'll see the same invoice.
Okay, and it doesn't come with any additional obligation for any amount of time. It's just that 1 year.
No, what we told them was we'd like 3-year pricing because we felt as an administration there is a break in pricing. So, but the reality is if you come to the second year and you say, pound sand, I'm not paying this bill, then that's what it is. You got the first year for a cheaper price than everyone else has to pay for 3 years. The reason we did a 3-year proposal was because we felt in this community, oftentimes it takes about 3 years for something to demonstrate whether it's working for us or not. We hate to cut things off short when they didn't have an opportunity to either demonstrate that they work or they don't work. Any other council comments? All right. Public comment on the claim.
Rotoba again. A year ago, approximately, the first call computer service was called a service contract. The judge decided it was a contract. It wasn't a service agreement like you said. This is the same thing. An agreement is a contract. You were entering into a contract with a company for too much money, and the town doesn't want it. It's not a service agreement. You can call it whatever you want. It's still a contract.
Further comment?
Stacy Barker, 104 Winslet. I thought as a homeowner in front of our homes that we were responsible for our sidewalks ourselves. So why are we spending the money on a contract or a service when as a homeowner, we're responsible for our own sidewalks? There was sidewalks down through this, let me finish.
This has nothing to do with sidewalks, Ms. Parker. The company is called My Sidewalk. It has
So,
nothing to do with.
Okay, so
concrete
what is the
sidewalks.
services act? Is it just an internet service? I guess I'm
Correct, it's a
confused.
website.
It's a lot of money.
I'm really new at this, but I've been listening to this conversation, and it seems to me like, from my past experience of living in boom towns, going to University of Colorado and University of Montana, and seeing what's happened over the last 50 years, that Stevensville isn't really prepared for the growth that's happening. Missoula's experienced it, Bozeman's really experienced it, and kind of what you're talking about, that 69,000 might be paying the person to put the data. You're going to give them the data, correct?
Correct.
And they're going to put the data in, and you're going to get some analytical data that you can use to make a big plan, because we can't just go by the little bits of growth that are happening. You really do need to be prepared for what is happening right now. Missoula is spreading out down to Lolo, down to Florence, down to here. And I just don't think we're ready. And I think having some good data, if it's only for 1 year, you're basically paying a person that's knowledgeable to enter the data and give you information, hopefully very good information that you can use. That's my opinion.
We need your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Do you mind stating your name and address for the record? I apologize.
Oh, I'm Deborah Buckley, 3593 Sourdough Lane.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Any further public comment?
It's not $69,000.
Correct. It's
You need
the
to
claim.
clarify
Yeah,
that.
the claim is for 23,000.
Vicky Motley, 318 9th Street. Thank you, Dempsey, for bringing this up. I think it's a lot of money in the time that we're going through right now. I think that the town has other areas that $23,000 can be used in. I don't think that this is valuable. I mean, I think it's valuable, but not at this time. I think we have to look at what's happening in our community and to our people, and the job loss and all of that. And I just don't think that the 23,000 is something we need to spend right now.
Any further public comment? All right, any further council comment? Okay, just to reiterate, your approval of the invoice this evening constitutes your approval that we enter into the further process with My Sidewalk, just to clarify that point. If there's no further discussion from council, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment as well, since I'm on here as it is.
Go ahead, Scott.
Can everybody hear me okay? I guess we'll do a mic check here first.
Yeah, no, you're perfect.
Okay.
Well, moving forward, there has been a lot of comment about the first call contract matter. And I do want to contrast that at least with what I understand has happened so far. And maybe these are questions and maybe it'll elicit a little bit more conversation. But the bottom line is what I understand is there's one claim sitting on the agenda. And it is a contract, or it's not a contract, it's a service agreement. And so I heard the mention of a $69,000 contract. And so I guess first my question is this agreement a 3-year agreement, or is this a 1-year annual fee?
It's a 1-year annual fee.
And there's no commitment to be locked in for the next 3 years, and there's no contract that needs to come through my office to be signed or reviewed for signature?
No.
Okay.
We pay the bill and get the service.
So
We don't pay
second,
the bill.
sorry, go ahead.
We pay the bill and get the service, or we don't pay the bill and we don't get the service. That's how that plays
Okay.
out.
And if the council approves this, approving this service agreement, which it'll be covered for the next just 1 year, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So some of the, I know I've sent out an email to the mayor and council regarding this issue. My recommendation moving forward here, it does not sound, from what I have been privy to, that we've entered into a contract. It sounds like right now you are approving is to avoid the situation we had before. Right now, in the event that you decide to move forward with this contract, at this point, or this service agreement, at this point, you would be agreeing to it or consenting to it now. And I just want that very clear on the record to avoid past issues. What the council decides to do from here is would be either consenting or revoking this agreement. And all consistent with what I had previously written on this matter. And there is a difference between this and the first call matter.
Any further council comments? All right, hearing none then, oh, yes, sure. You just gotta get you warmed up.
I as well struggled with the price of the $23,000, but I reflected that to some of Ms. Devlin's comments during the decision regarding Burn Fork Estates and the town not having an adequate master plan, a growth policy. And so when I look at the value of how our town is going to grow and what this program will provide us and help the council guide this community in down the road 10, 20 years, I feel this program has a lot of value.
Any further council comments?
Yes, definitely. Last thing I'm gonna say, yeah, I do believe that, I mean, it is this program, whatever we want to call it, is something that's very valuable. I just think the money could be better allocated in other places. I mean, we have firefighters that are behind on their turnout gear. I mean, I hate to point fingers at myself, but I've been using the pair of turnout gear that was outdated even when I got it. And I mean, we're waiting on new signs to come in. We got a program that we're going to be looking at tonight for the parks. I mean, the money could go to better use in other places, I believe. And I believe we could find a cheaper vendor or a cheaper program than this. That's all I got to say.
All right, any last remarks, council members? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote on the approving claim 16697. Ms. Burkhardt?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Langton,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirt,
Aye.
and Councilmember Vick.
No.
All right, the motion passes 3-1. Okay, council has no administrative reports, guests, or correspondence this evening. We'll move straight into public hearings. You have 2 before you this evening that we'll move through before you consider the business portion of your agenda. You have the zoning change application for my properties from R1 to R2, and a zoning change application for a portion of the Twin Creek subdivision from R1 to R2. We will, for the sake, because I don't know who plans to comment on which item, for the sake of smoothness of tonight's meeting, we'll go ahead and run those public hearings concurrently. So that if you wish to provide a comment on either item, go ahead and you can do that at the same time, or both items if you wish to. So just know that this public hearing will just do those together. We did receive some public comment electronically that will reference into the record.
That was also sent.
Yes, so council received the actual packet of public comment. And so more or less it is referenced into the minutes, and so it will be part of your minute packet when you approve the minutes of the public hearing. So with that, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. I don't see a representative from our properties here to make a presentation formally, but that information is included in your town council packet. Just get to it. We'll review it real quick before we get into comments. I don't think so. It'll take us a minute to line that up. I'm just going to review the details. It's not anything that the council isn't already privy to or isn't available in the packet online. So the Lamar Properties project is located on the north end of Stevensville, between Pine Street and North Avenue. The property is accessed by Pine Street. It is not accessed by North Avenue, nor would be. There is a 1-foot strip of land on the west side of North Avenue preventing anyone from this parcel from accessing North Avenue. So that was a tactic done in the early days to prevent that kind of access. The applicant is seeking your approval for a zone change to develop multifamily housing instead of single family housing. The properties surrounding this specific parcel or two parcels are a mix of both R1 and R2 uses. R2 exists to the south and the north. R1 exists to the south and to the east, as well as to the west. The discussion about dwelling units is included in the staff report for you to kind of review the difference. More than one dwelling unit is prohibited in an R1 zone in the same building. And the developer would like to obviously maximize the availability of housing on that property. And so they're doing, I think, up to 4 units in a single building. Townhouse style is what they're proposing at this time. Ultimately, the town council, or excuse me, the planning and zoning board reviewed the proposal and made the recommendation that the town council approve the zoning change. Are there any questions from council on the Lamar property zone change? Okay. There are representatives here for the Twin Creeks rezoning, so I'll invite Mr. Ewert up to give a presentation on what that proposal entails.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Ewert, and I'm with PCI. I just have a simple little drawing here. I could be easy, but I'll just set it here. Something like that. You can see that. All right. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'll try to hit the high points and answer any questions there might be. So this would be, I'll bring it to anyone or you can take a look at it. This would be the plat of Twin Creeks superimposed over an aerial photograph. And so phase 1 is complete, built out, and then phases 2 and 3 are still haven't been built on at all. So what we're asking for is to rezone a small portion of phase 3 from R1 to R2. It's about 3.5 acres, or 17% of the land area. It would have some of the benefits of the rezoning would be, first of all, we're deleting 16 single-family lots. And then within the 11 lots, there could be either a duplex or a townhome where you own one side or the other. Or there could be a single-family lot as well. And they're not very big lots, so you can't put a whole lot on it. You can't, put anything more density than that. So would be about 1,300 lineal feet less of roadway and utilities and everything that goes along with it. There would be two fewer creek crossings here. And the common area would increase by about 3 acres. So that would help to preserve the resource area. There are a couple of creeks that run sometimes through here. Of course, the first plat that was done approved in 2007 did protect that area, and here we'll give it much more protection. So there'll also be less amount of ground disturbance too, because you've got all of these lots that aren't being disturbed. All these lot areas. Now, the owner of the 2.0 acres to the south, with the 2007 approval, was working with the owner of the 40 acres to the north. But now that's changed, and the folks that live in this 2 acres would rather just not be part of the subdivision, but they would like to do a little bit of a boundary relocation. So this bottom line will look a little bit different because we want to give these folks the best yard area that they could, because at one time, more than likely, the same owner owned both parcels, and they didn't care that their yard encroached into this area. So we're going to help them out by doing that, and also provide them an easement, which does not exist at this time. So really, I think this is a good opportunity for increased opportunities for affordable housing, diversity in housing, small lots, about the same as we have up here, about 8,000 square feet. 10,000, somewhere in that range. Homeowner association, and who can also help take care of the common area as they choose. So I think it's a good deal for the developer. Gives a lot less cost going out to buy the extra land and to put in the 1,300 feet of roadway and so on. So that's about all. I just wanted to kind of hit the highlights. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, are there any questions from the council? Huge pile of topsoil out there. Is that gonna go away?
Yes, that's sitting right where the lot's gonna go.
Mr. Sherman?
Just for clarification, we're by eliminating 16 and then
Right.
we're moving 11 to R2, we'd essentially increase the number of living units by 5 for duplexes?
Well, you're increasing the number of potential duplexes by 11. 11, there could be 11 single family or 11 duplexes.
Okay.
But these 16 lots would not be developed. And the density ends up being the same, 2.63 per acre. It's 20.37 acres with 59 lots versus 22.37 acres with the additional lots.
So he's taking away 16 single family lots.
Yeah.
And he's placing those single families and doubling them up on 11 single family lots to make 11 multi-family lots. Does that make sense?
Correct. So
Would I explain it that way? 22 living units. Yeah. Possible. And the formal proposal would have been
11.
So it's a difference
11.
of 6 living units, correct?
correct less.
Right. So there are 16 lots that there won't be, but potentially 11 lots or 11 units additional. So 64 lots versus 59 lots. And the density works out to be 2.89 per acre either way.
What's your plan for improvements in that common area though?
Well, at this time, we're just gonna leave it natural. We're not gonna touch the water or anything, just, I know there's a lot of wildlife that live there, aquatic beings and so on. Just leave it alone, and maybe someday, let's say the homeowner association wants to do some plantings or something, or some kind of repair work, whatever, they can always do that. But right now, I don't think there's any need for anything other than just leave it alone.
So you're adding 3 acres of common
Correct. So,
that homeowners association is going to have to be responsible for taking care of and maintaining. That has a lot of water and wildlife in it. So why would somebody want to pay for something that they can't use?
well, they can certainly walk through it. They even do today. They walk down and around, and it's a wonderful place to live and to be.
It doesn't really require anything.
Very little. I mean, if you want to do some special projects, you can have at it. But you're right. I don't think there would be a lot of work or maintenance that needs to be done.
So you just let weeds and grass and water and animals do their thing, and you don't pay attention to that
Well,
area?
I suppose if there's weeds, you want to take care of the weeds for the Valley County Weed District recommendations. Maybe have somebody come out and take a look. But there is a road that comes down here. They would still have use of that road if they needed to take a little pickup down there and take care of weeds, or pull weeds, plant grass, or whatever.
I guess my understanding is there's no obligation of the homeowners association to take care of the property. It would be up to their decision whether or not they wanted to have mowed with nice green grass, or if they wanted to leave it as is. And the initial part or the initial area, the common space, the intentions were to leave it natural.
We plan to leave it natural.
Okay.
And someday it will be under the control of a homeowners association.
Are there questions from council?
I have had some other comment regarding height of buildings. From my understanding, the council can condition a zoning change. Is that correct?
So is our concern that they're gonna go up with units?
Correct. That was a public comment I received, and also more than one duplex. I understand that with town code and pushbacks, there's not enough space to.
Sure, so I think that you can condition the rephasing so that, and that's an item we'll consider later, is because there's a rephasing request along with this. So you could condition the rephasing to prohibit the aggregation of lots. And that would prohibit someone from buying 2 lots next to each other and building a larger building than what they could build on 1 lot. Admittedly, these lots are relatively small, where even if you wanted to go up, based on the square footage, you'll have a very difficult time meeting the town's development code in terms of what the requirements and all of the landscaping requirements that go along with more dwelling units, right? So we have minimum dwelling unit sizes. And then, so if you do something like a 2 or 3 bedroom unit, then you're going to have 1.5 spaces per bedroom. Getting all of that parking on a lot where you need the space on the lot to build a building is going to be very difficult, especially when you take into consideration the setbacks. And so that's why the staff report does not recommend conditioning the height of buildings or the number of units on a lot, because practically speaking, when you apply the code to those lots, it can't be done. They're too small. So yes, you could go up physically in space and add more units, but where you park those cars is impossible. So if a permit were to come to the town to say, I want to build this fourplex on here, and this is, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit on all sides, we couldn't do that. So that's why it's not conditioned. But I do think that it might be a good idea for the town council to condition as part of the rephasing plan rather than the zoning that the aggregation of lots is prohibited meaning to lot line adjust. Doesn't mean one more than one person, or one person can own multiple lots, but that there would be no moving around of the boundary lines. Thank you. You're welcome. Any further questions from council before we open the public hearings? All right. Thanks, Ron. We're going to open the public hearing, allow public a chance to speak on the proposals. Both proposals seek rezoning from R1 to R2. Please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Mayor Dewey and council members, thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name's Deborah Buckley. I live at
Can I
35.
ask you to turn the microphone on? I apologize. It's not
You
on.
can't hear me?
Just
Oh, I'm
push
sorry.
the button. Yeah,
Oh,
it's just so.
Is it on now? Oh,
Perfect.
okay.
Yep, thank you. It's just for our online users. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Deborah Buckley, 3593 Sourdough Lane. I live in the Twin Creeks subdivision, and I'm here tonight to request that you deny the change from an R1 to an R2 zoning for phase 2 and phase 3. Today you received signatures from 46 homeowners, and that came out of 27 houses. And that was a door-to-door canvas by Don Lorenzen in our neighborhood. He was trying to get feedback from everybody. Of all the people he was able to contact, which were 46 homeowners out of 27 houses, 100% of the people are against it going to an R2 zoning. The big question is why. PCI didn't address that. Why do they want to do this? Why do they want to change the zoning that they approved for our small neighborhood of single family homes halfway through the game? Well, we understand it changed ownership. It was sold. Now the new owner of the land, Stan Hendrickson, he's putting the money into the game, but he's an elderly man. He doesn't really know what's going on. I talked to him today. He told me he's not aware of this meeting or any changes or to talk to PCI. And that's the truth. He called me today. So why change our small single family neighborhood, which has already been approved at an R1, which allows 4 homes per acre? That's what we have right now. We have 4 homes for every acre in our little neighborhood. We don't have much room. We have 20 feet between the houses, pretty tight. Well, what they're asking for is a little deceiving, the way it's written, that they're taking away 16 lots. And in your mind, when you first read that, you think that's all going to be empty space. But really all they're taking away are 5. They're leaving 5 lots. And out of that 16, 11 are going to be rezoned to R2. So what we're kind of worried about is if you give them R2, R2 allows for 16 units per acre. It allows for 36-foot tall buildings. That could go up to 56 units on those 11 lots. Those 11 lots are 3.5 acres. Multiply that by 16 units per acre, and you'll come up with 56 point something. That would be legally allowed. Now, if they go to sell that, and the next developer comes in, they've got an R2. So then you're up against, we've already been approved for an R2. We can do it. We can build 36-foot tall buildings. We can put garages under, and we can pack people in. Well, with higher density, we all know, I'm preaching to the choir. We already have problems with our water, rationing of water. We're all aware of the pre-existing problems with our water infrastructure. Increased traffic and risks. more people crowded in, more cars going up and down where children could be playing, and just more risk of accidents. We need increased provision for sewage and storm drainage. Right now, there's nothing in the plan for that, especially within the vicinity of the creeks. The creeks aren't even drawn on here. There's no creeks drawn on here. And the map we got was 1 inch square, aerial map. The residents received a 1 inch square, 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch, showing where the creeks were. Well, we know where the creeks are. We live there. But where are they up here? They're not there. They're not drawn there. The additional common area. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? That sounds nice. Let's have more green space. Let's plan. Let's have a nice area for the kids to play. Maybe let's have a trail around the whole neighborhood. Let's have some place where people can walk. But that's not in the plan. The developer doesn't plan on putting any money into that. So where's that money going to come from? Well, our HOA is worried that it might increase the fees for us to try to make it usable and not just be a dumping ground that we're left with. It's pretty over there, but they dump a bunch of construction rubble out there. Trash, old construction pieces, old stuff. It's not nice. So planners know that increased density, which is what they're asking for, brings increased social problems. When you put more people closer together. Social problems mean things like crime, distress between families, and sometimes just probably more rentals. Now, we know people need a place to live, but they're talking about affordable housing. They're talking about it. We have no guarantees what they're going to charge. Who sets the affordable housing? No one. The builder builds it and sets it. It doesn't have to be affordable for anyone. People are overpaying for rentals. We know what's happening. Rentals are over $1,000 a month, up to $1,500, $1,600, more than a mortgage. People can't afford to live anymore in Missoula, Lolo, or Stevensville, renting. Our kids can't buy houses. All this boils down to diminished property values. So 100% of the residents, not 100% of everybody, but 100% of the people they contacted, which you got the written signatures, said no. We don't want R2. We just want to keep it a little family neighborhood. We'd rather have the extra single family houses than more land and a bunch of things crowded in here. It doesn't make sense. What's the benefit? There's no benefit to Stevensville, and there's no benefit to us. The only benefit is to the developer, who's already going to make money, who's going to make a lot of money here. And they're going to make more money there. That's what they want. That's all they want. They don't care. They don't care about a nicer neighborhood or more wildlife. They don't. That's all just rhetoric to sell that plan. So please, we hope, I'm sorry I'm emotional, but I just see that in what you were talking about before and needing a big plan, knowing what you're going to do. Why change now? You already approved this little neighborhood, which probably people didn't want to begin with, that I live in, for the same reason that I'm standing here tonight. But why change it again? People had a mindset on this was going to be a small town, little neighborhood. And now we're trying to add in 2-story probably with less setbacks. They're proposing shorter distances between the homes and setbacks on the yard, so they'll be crammed in there more. We hope that you'll listen to your constituents. We are your constituents, and we hope you'll listen to us and stick with it as a single family. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Next comment, please.
You go. I'll be right behind you.
Can I take this? Yes, to speak, that's acceptable. You don't mind stating your name and address, and
No, not a problem.
when you're finished, you can sign the sign-in sheet on the podium, so we get the spelling of your name right in minutes. That'd be great.
My name is Russ Vogel. I live at 3574 Holly Lane, which they say is Stevensville, but it's still the county. And there are two different problems here. One is wildlife, which nobody really does address, because I run domestic critter recovery with Judy Hoy, and I take in a lot of aviary and some cats and some bigger animals and this and that on and off. Okay, if you start constructing over there, it's going to end up like where I came from in River Grove, Illinois. Our lots there were 180 by 170, or 180 by 170. They were small lots, but you were still crammed in. The more and more people you put and concentrate in a small area, you're going to have social problems, like the young lady said.
Thank you for coming down.
I left Illinois to move here to get away from those social problems. If you start creating this and then you say affordable housing, it's not going to be. Okay? I know what's going to happen, and I know these HOAs, that they are in it for the bottom dollar. And when it comes to wildlife, is anybody telling these people that actually mountain lions do come down through the neighborhoods? Do they tell them? Well, I haven't seen a black bear in 20 years here, so I've only seen one come through. And that was way before. That's when Brown had the place, and he had his bulls out there. So the bears didn't mess around in there too much. But there's been mountain lions. I've had several of my geese killed by mountain lions. Okay. And what people don't realize, geese are livestock. Okay. Who's ever shooting my geese, I'm going to find them. Okay. It's not funny anymore because I have to let them out and then bring them in every night, which I haven't done lately because I'm trying to repopulate my geese population. I have pigeons that have been brought to me on and off, usually 4 or 5 at a time because people can't handle them anymore as their pets. I have cockatoos and other birds like that, and a ferret or two here and there. But I take care of these animals because of this concentration. These animals can't live. Now the minks, when I get them, I let them go, but I let them go out around Judy Hoy's place, Judy and Bob Hoy's place. But if you want to talk about building in that area, number one, South Swamp Creek is still under the Army Corps of Engineers, whether you know it or not. Second, I'm going to find out if the DNRC has done a lately report on that area because my well has dropped. And that's not my fault. That's his fault. And these HOAs, when they built that place, all our wells went down all along Holly Lane. Okay, so when it comes to lean times in the winter, we're hoping we have enough water in our wells to cover the things we need. Second, some of us have flooded out. Okay, we've had our crawl spaces flooded. We've had our septic systems flooded. Now I'm already in conversation with the county to have a new septic system put into my place because I don't like calling my buddies out to pump that thing dry every 2 months. Yeah. Every 2 to 3 months, they come out and pump me out. And that's approximately $400 to $500. All right. So I strongly recommend you either hold off on this or stop it for now. Put a moratorium on new construction in that area until we can resolve our problems. Because where I live, I am due west of that area, which puts me down the hill. Okay. I should have a fairly decent height. Now, I can honestly tell you this, when I first came here, before any of that was there, when I first put in new fencing, there was water at the base of the fence posts. Okay. Now there isn't so much anymore. But I'd like to know where all this flow is coming from, because you changed a lot of the creek movements there. And when you start changing nature, nature has a tendency to rebel, and it will. So when you start packing sardines in there, I'm sorry to say, you're going to have a problem. Maybe not in the short run, in the long run. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment?
John Monk, 401 Central. Interesting. You have suffered through a whole year with this development. It's been the coronavirus or whatever else took so long. And then at the last time I was here, the vote was taken to approve it. But it really wasn't a clear vote because we voted in order to avoid a lawsuit. Not really a good thing. And so my question is, after you've approved everything that you went through for a whole year, why would you change it?
Mr. Monk, just to clarify, this is a separate subdivision than Bird Fork Estates. This is part of Twin Creeks.
Both of them, you said, are in the same category.
No, sir. We're not dealing with Bird Fork Estates at all tonight. Lamar Properties is a different project over here behind the Bass House.
Behind the Bass House.
Correct.
So you're not doing anything with Twin Creeks?
We're doing Lamar Properties behind the Bass House, and then we're doing Twin Creeks, but we're not touching Bird Fork Estates and don't plan to for some time. Right, Mr. Kellogg?
That's correct.
Okay. So Bird Fork Estates isn't being addressed whatsoever tonight.
Okay, good luck, Kenny.
Further public comment? For the public hearing on either proposal.
So, Stacy Barker, 104 Winslet. The housing that you're planning on putting over behind here are supposed to be duplexes. Is that correct?
So to be clear, it's not our proposal. It's a proposal by a landowner. The town council is considering whether or not to approve the rezoning of that property.
Personally, I think it should stay the same as the R1, not increase it anymore. You've just increased it by putting behind our home. Again, those pieces of property. Just looking at that low income housing that they're proposing, a 62-year-old and older, $887, that's low income. The bottom line for those homes, $489 for disability, people with disabilities. You bring that into town, we're already struggling. Those people are already struggling trying to make those type of rents. And then you want to put more apartments in. I don't think it's right. I think it needs to stay where it's at the R1. You're encroaching on a lot of different properties through there. I don't know if you guys have even been over in that area. It's swamp off of First Avenue. It's swampy, or North Avenue, excuse me. That whole area has cattails in it, and you're going to put more housing in an area with high water. I don't think it's right. I don't think that you guys should push it through. I think you need to listen to your community.
Bob Michelson, 222 Turner Street. I have to concur with Stacy and some of the others. I think there's just too much growth, too fast for
Keep this
this town.
side conversation. I apologize, Mr. Michelson. Ms. Rodovan, Mr. Monk, if you guys don't mind.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's too much growth too fast, and I also think there's a terrible, I had a good conversation the other day with, what's his name down the end in the big yellow house, what's his name?
Mel Cook.
Mel Cook, and he's pretty livid about this, so is Paul, what's his name, Pat Roninger. They think the surface water issue is basically gonna come back around. It's gonna come back and bite us all, because the water's moving and we're doing so many things so fast in this town. It's almost like we're in a race. We're not Missoula. We're Stevensville. We moved here to keep a small town, and now we have one of the biggest subdivision that was just proposed in Ravalli County. And now we're doing R2, R1. It's just like we can't keep up with what's going on. We have to slow down and think all this through. It's like we all want the revenue. I get that. Revenue runs our town. But it has to be done in a sensible, slow manner too. And you guys are moving at breakneck speed. Heck, it's like we're in a competition with Missoula. We really are. And I don't think that's good for this town in the long run. Thank you.
Any further public comment for the public hearing? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearings then, and move on to the business portion. For our agenda, you'll,
Motion for 10-minute, 10-minute recess.
okay, before we get into a quick recess, just know the items under new business are the consideration of these zoning changes for those who are interested in sticking around for those decision items. So with that, we'll take a quick 10-minute break and reconvene at 8:23. All right. We will reconvene the town council meeting for April 22nd after a short break. We're under new unfinished business. Discussion decision on project plans for the Gene Thomas Parks Beautification Fund. The council last considered this item at a special meeting of the council on April 6th, as I recall. A proposal there were two specific proposals. One was for renovations at Father Valley Park. The other was for a contribution to the new splash pad project at Lewis and Clark Park. The Parks Department took the proposal to the Park Board for their blessing and received unanimous consent and feedback there in support of the project, in support of both. We also held a community or neighborhood town hall meeting at Father Valley Park to gather citizen feedback on the project, specifically the renovations at Father Valley Park. Conveniently, Mr. Sunstein was setting up for the town hall meeting as a T-ball group was exiting the park, but they hung out a little bit longer to see what he was up to and shared a plethora of positive feedback about how cool the improvements would be for Father Valley Park. So we have youth buy-in certainly on the project. We also had a handful of citizens participate from the neighborhood as well, including the neighbors directly north of the park who supported the project, and we're very excited to see the town considering investing into the amenities there. So the item is before your consideration tonight for both projects.
I'll make a motion to approve the project plans for the Gene Thomas Parks Beautification Fund.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Shirt, seconded by Ms. Devlin to approve project plans for the Gene Thomas Park Beautification Fund. Any council comment this evening?
Yeah, I just have a question. I had a phone call from a gentleman that's like, that park is very dear to him and whatnot. He just wants to make sure the things that his money went into, such as a bench, one of the signs that he repainted, and from what I understand, he helped pay for that new flagpole out there. He just wants to make sure none of that stuff's gonna get touched.
So no, Mr. Giaconetto's contributions will remain intact, with the exception we are considering some improved signage because the signage that's there is rotting out of the ground. So that's kind of low on the priority list in terms of where funding goes. But if we have the opportunity to replace signage, we'll consider doing that. But the flagpole is there to stay, and as well as the bench that's sitting next to the mailbox is there. In fact, we might even eventually try to connect some sidewalks so that bench is more accessible. Any further remarks from council? Public comment on the project? All right, hearing none then, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Bertha?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherrod,
Aye.
and Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate your indulgence there. We'll move into new business now. Discussion decision, first reading of ordinance number 167, rezoning certain parcels from R1 to R2 residential. The ordinance 167 addresses, put up here, the Lamar Properties proposal in converting that property from R1 zoning to R2 zoning by if council's inclination is to approve that zoning request, you do so by ordinance, which is why it's before you this evening. We've heard proposals and the project plans as well as public feedback. So this will be considered first reading of ordinance 167.
I guess I would like to actually have, some sort of presentation from the developer before we move forward on this.
Okay.
Here's what I'll tell you from my perspective on this. If we were to leave this R1, you could put 2 homes in there. That would have to do no mitigation for the swamping. And I'll agree with you, Stacy, it's very swampy. Why it's been empty all these years. Very swampy out there. If we rezone it to R2,
they'll have to mitigate. They'll have to mitigate the water if they can, which means they'll have to get a permit from the DEQ that they're showing that that surface water is being treated on site and not leaving the property. Well, our one house on there, they don't have to do that. The water can go wherever it wants. That's the only reason I'm in favor of this, because personally, they're gonna have a very difficult time. And we had talked about that at the planning and zoning meeting, and the developer said they didn't really know at this point what they were gonna do. All they knew is that they didn't want to put, that they wanted to try to put more than 2 homes in that area. And if they're gonna do that, they will have to mitigate the surface water. They won't just be able to build up a spot and have the water go into a dry well. They'll have to prove that it's being treated and not going offsite. And that's gonna be tough.
Right, no, I'm not saying I'm against it. I mean, I'm just saying that I would like to be able to ask questions to the developer one-on-one. I mean, I don't know why people don't like living in swamps. I'm originally from Florida. It's the entire state.
One point to also bring up is, and Paul explained this very well at the town, or at the planning and zoning board meeting, was that the consideration before the body is whether or not the zoning change is approved. The planning board shared some feedback on the proposal in terms of what their concept looked like. They gave us a concept plan to say this is kind of what they're thinking, but it wasn't, a formal proposal. They were given some feedback on that proposal, but that's not necessarily part of the decision. So what they do with the property is not up for decision. It's really whether it's zoned R1 or it's zoned R2. Any future proposals, if warranted, would then come back, depending on what those proposals are. But there's no harm in reaching out to the developers and getting them here to make a proposal. So.
I guess my major concern is I drove over there last night and it is standing water with cattails and it looks like a creek running through the middle. Paul, you had spoke to changing it to R2 from R1. I guess I just need a little clearer understanding on how that would provide protections for versus the R1 for the R2 and mitigating that water supply.
That mainly is because whatever in this particular area, whatever is not a home, is going to be a very small side yard and parking lot. So anytime you put in a hard surface like that, you're going to have to show where that water that you're displacing goes. So you'll have to be able to show where that's going to go. If you put in a house, you can say all that water is just going on my yard, because you'll have a front yard and a backyard and side yards. In R2 area like this, you will have to have some setback, but you'll also have to have parking, a lot of parking, 1.5 parking spaces per bedroom, which means that whatever isn't part of the side yard or small backyard will be parking lot, hard surface, where you'll have to designate to an authority where that stormwater is going, where that surface water is going.
Be a requirement of their building permit. So when they submit the site plans, they don't get a permit to build, depending on what they want to build. And we're speculating, they don't get those permits until they've met all those requirements.
Okay, so that authority would be DEQ and DNRC?
DEQ, not DNRC.
Okay.
Any further?
I would also like a presentation from the developer.
I will make a motion to table until we can get a presentation from the developer so we can actually ask questions to them.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, second by Mr. Sherb to table first reading of ordinance 167 until such time the developer is available to present to the council. Further council comments? Public comment on tabling the decision. Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Burkhardt?
Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington.
Aye.
Councilmember Sherb.
Aye.
And Councilmember Vick.
Aye.
Okay, we'll get that rescheduled. Next on the agenda is discussion decision, first reading of ordinance 168, rezoning parcels from R1 to R2 residential. This is for the Twin Creeks proposal specifically. As a note, there's a difference between the two ordinances. This ordinance is contingent upon the final plat of the Twin Creek subdivision because the parcels you're rezoning technically don't exist yet. So they will not exist until the final plat is filed with the clerk and recorder. And so that is when this ordinance effectively goes in, is when those lots are actually platted. So just to hypothesize this, if in theory, if I didn't put in the contingent on final plat, then you could have a imaginary line of a bubble in the middle of this parcel, right? That's R2. We wanted to prevent that from happening. And so we made it contingent on the actual lots being created.
So you're saying that the lots are not technically created?
They are not platted lots yet. Because the final plat for phases 2 and 3 of the subdivision have not been filed. In fact, the development hasn't been built yet, so they have to build it before they can file final plat.
Well, the preliminary plat is on record.
Yes.
With these particular lots.
Correct.
And they won't have to refile a preliminary plat for rezone or for the reconfiguration. Are you gonna have to, Ron, are you gonna have to file a preliminary plat for the reconfiguration?
So there is a preliminary plat on record. It was approved in 2007.
Right.
So what we're asking to do is to delete 16 lots from the preliminary plat of phase 3 and to rezone these 11 lots. So I agree with Mayor Dewey that we could make it contingent upon subdivision, upon final plat approval.
But that doesn't require you to file another preliminary plat.
No, not another preliminary plat.
Okay.
So it would just be on record.
So just because you're removing lots.
Right, right. Thank you.
Obviously, my concern is that these were created lots in the preliminary plat. And if the lots change with the final plat, it's gonna affect my concern is that the lots are gonna get fewer and bigger. And that will end up with more than I would consider deemed necessary in this size of the lots as they exist on what I'm looking at.
Right.
I think if they reconfigured the lots and made them bigger and made fewer of them, that when they were doing actual lot line adjustments, that would require preliminary plat refiling.
So the final plat will be approved by the city council, town council and the mayor. And so you'll probably look at the preliminary plat and compare that with the final plat to make sure it's the same thing before you'll sign off on it.
Okay.
And with this change, the only difference is deletion of 16 lots. It's the only thing that's different in the subdivision, except those 11 lots could have a duplex or a townhome, a two-family townhome, or a single-family house.
When you approve the rephasing as well, if you approve that, that would be recorded with the preliminary plat documents to show that that's been rephased. If that's the direction you went. You'll also have to hold before phase 2 and phase 3 commence, you'll hold public hearings.
Okay. Yeah, so as a point of clarification, the reason that I bring this up is that as these lots are created, there isn't room on these lots for 16 dwelling units. There's just not room in this, the way it's configured.
Correct, and it was mentioned about basements, that we won't have any basements, it's slab on grade, and it has to be, the finished floor elevation has to be a certain height above the road, so we're looking out for
It's
that.
a condition of the previous
Right,
preliminary plat approval that there is no basements.
There's a long list of conditions that go with the filing of the final plats of phase 2 and 3 that we already met for phase 1.
That's why I wanted to make sure that that these lot sizes can't grow so that we can put bigger buildings on there.
Right,
and more
and
density.
Right, and we'd be in agreement with the rephasing condition that says that we can't aggregate lots, you know, to make fourplexes or whatever.
I have a question.
Not quite, we're not quite at the public comment
Oh, okay.
period. I apologize.
I would make a motion to approve resolution 168,
Or ordinance.
ordinance 168.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Ludington, second by Mr. Sherd to approve your first reading of ordinance 168. Council discussion.
I guess the only real things that I've got to say is one, like I'm gonna kind of reiterate again what I've said last time, and that is, you know, all the public comment that we got, but that was against this. But the other issue that I have, I am not happy with not not doing any improvements in that green space area. I would like to see some trails and some water mitigation practices to prevent water from moving into these people's homes and whatnot, and to prevent even more water loss to the gentleman that spoke earlier during the public meeting or during the public hearing.
I guess I'm getting quite tired of things being approved one way and down the road, things getting changed, and the neighborhoods around them just get a, oh, well, that's the way it is attitude. I'm kind of back where I was when we were Burnt Fork Estates, and it kind of brings up the same thoughts that I had during that process. Things change, I understand that, but not when you're in the middle of a process. I think people are promised one thing and proposed one thing, and I think we need to stick with that. And I don't think we're in, well, I'm just gonna leave it there.
Any further council comment? All right, public comment. Is there any public comment?
Mayor Dew, can you please
mind-
explain, Deborah Buckley, 3593 Sourdough
hang of it.
Lane? Every time, yeah, I'm sorry. Can you please explain to me what you just said? I couldn't quite hear with the mask on and everything. It's kind of hard to understand everything. Some of it came out a little mumbled. I know you didn't mean to, but what is the process that you're talking about? Because right here, you see, this right here is what's been approved. This right here, as approved. This is as proposed. The lot shapes are the same. So saying that the lot shapes haven't been established is what I heard you say. I don't understand. Look, they're the same color. They've only changed color.
Right.
These are going to be R2.
So what I was speaking to Ms. Buckley is if you went to the official land records of the county, to the county clerk and recorder's office, those lots would not exist. They are not legally platted lots. They're under a preliminary plat, yes, but if you went onto the cadastral system or anywhere else to find official records on properties or lots, you would not find that those lots ever exist at all. They are not yet legally created lots. They don't have pins in the ground. They don't have property lines or anything like that. They're preliminary lots.
Well, how could they have been approved in 2007?
They were preliminarily approved. So the lot doesn't take form until a final plat is approved. And before that final plat is approved, or actually before the project commences, we hold a public hearing for that phase. So the lot you live on did not technically exist as a lot until the credit union finished the subdivision, meaning they did all the roads, they did all the infrastructure, they did everything there. They came to the town council at the time and they said, "We finished this, please sign off on the final plat." The town council made sure they met all of the conditions that they had set in 2007. And then if that was the case, they signed off on the final plat. when that final plat is signed off on, then it's recorded at the clerk and recorder's office in Hamilton. And then that is when the lot is legally defined. So these are all concepts and are subject to change. That's the idea. of
So how can
preliminary
you
plats.
vote? How can you vote on approving a zoning change? Are you planning on voting on that tonight?
The first reading is before council tonight.
The first reading?
Correct, and it's contingent on the legal creation of those lots. So if the lots never got created, the zoning wouldn't go into effect.
Well, we know that's going to happen.
Okay,
The land is there. The developer's plan is there.
Mhm.
So I don't understand. To me, it kind of seems like you're prolonging this. You're getting approval tonight based on something that you're saying doesn't exist.
that's exactly the case. And I mean, to your points, I think you probably want us to prolong it, because,
No, I don't. I
don't-
would like you to make a decision and say no.
well, so they'll make a decision tonight as to whether, on first reading, they have to do 2 readings. So decision 1 is tonight, and if they approve the first reading, then they'll do a second reading at the next meeting.
So right now, you're on 11B,
That's correct,
and then you're going to go to 11C.
correct.
Is 11C going to be a final vote?
11C, yes, would be the first one's gonna be a final vote in terms of the first reading, and then they'll do a second reading. 11C, the rephasing, is actually the mechanism that removes the rest of the lots. That's the rephasing
Oh.
plan. The zoning change does not actually remove those lots. Those lots on the preliminary plat would still exist.
So
if
right
they
now,
approve
you're on the
zoning change.
rezoning. The 11C is just to take away those 5.
Correct. Actually, to take away, is it 5 lots we're taking away, or is it 16 lots we're removing?
16.
No, you're not taking away, see, that's the
No, we're not
math.
taking away 16
You're not.
units, but we are taking away 16 lots. There's a difference between lots
You're
and
taking
units.
away 16, but you're putting 11 back.
Correct.
So
Units.
16 minus 11 is
The 11 already
5.
exist.
It's a little bit over an acre. I heard somebody say it was
I hear
3
you.
acres.
I hear you, Ms. Buckley, and frankly, public
Okay.
comment is not a time. for
I'm gonna
public
have a
comment.
seat. I'm gonna have a seat and see what you do here next. I hope you do the right thing.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay. All right, any further council comments on the first reading? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Bertha?
Councilmember Devlin,
No.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherrod,
No.
Councilmember Vic.
No.
Okay, the motion fails and first reading of the ordinance fails as well. Next on the agenda is discussion decision on rephasing request for phases 2 and 3 of the Twin Creeks subdivision. The rephasing proposal is to remove 16 lots from the subdivision. That's it. And the associated infrastructure with it.
Well, based on the application for rephasing or the evidence that I'm given here, it looks like it was contingent on the passing of the last agenda item.
Is that what the proposal says directly?
That's what it appears to be, because looking at the maps, because all I have here is a picture of a map. It shows the original preliminary plat, and then it shows the new one with less those lots coming off a Cimarron Lane, and then something that looks like Barney the Purple Dinosaur off of the hitching post.
So I
think technically you'll still have to make a motion, make a decision.
I think you still have to consider it, because I expect regardless, they're gonna probably come back with some changes, given that that last 2-acre parcel at the end of the subdivision, the subdivision or the developers don't own, and the owners of that property no longer wish to be part of the subdivision because both properties have changed hands. So there's at least that row of lots that's going to go away no matter what, because they're not interested in developing that property. So you have a couple of options. You can approve the rephasing request, you can deny the rephasing request, or you can table the rephasing request until they bring a different proposal forward.
And I'll make a motion to table until we have a new proposal for rezoning.
Second.
You're not, hang on. Rephasing.
Not rezoning.
Right. I wanted to table this until we got a new proposal for the other.
You want to table rephasing until they bring a proposal for rezoning?
That's how I thought you just explained it.
No, it doesn't sound
Oh my
like a
gosh,
zoning
you guys.
change is ever, is
Okay.
even on the table. You want them to bring a different rephasing proposal forward, as I understand your discussion tonight.
I would say yes, mainly because what I'm currently seeing right now appears like it was contingent on us passing the ordinance.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind restating your motion to reflect exactly what your intent is.
Then I make a motion to table the rephasing request until we get a new proposal back that reflects the denial of the ordinance.
Second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, second by Mr. Ludington to table the rephasing request proposal until such proposal addresses, another proposal comes forward that addresses the previous request. Discussion. Public comment.
So I'd just like to know how we're supposed to move forward, because if you want to vote one way or another, if we could get some feedback. I mean, part of the reason here, this is the ecologically thing to do, is to provide more land area for the wildlife and so on. So if we're going to go ahead and develop these lots, and maybe these will get developed as well. I can't say that they won't be developed. So if we go ahead with what was approved, then we don't have to come back for a rephasing plan or rezoning.
You don't.
So again, the question was asked, why would we want to do this? Because it's the ecologically correct thing to do. You're putting in much less infrastructure, roads, lot areas, and so on. So that's the reason for that. So if we could have some direction on how to move forward, then we'll be able to understand it more.
Did you say those lots were gonna go away regardless? Did you say that?
Yep.
So,
And, I understand where you're coming from, Ron, but I can't really give you direction there. You'll have to talk to the staff, to the town staff about how you're supposed to move forward. I don't think that's the responsibility of the council at this point. If there's some other proposal that you'd like to make, you'll need to make that to staff first before it comes before this committee, so that they can decide whether it's applicable or not.
And the reason behind my motion is because your proposal is reflecting the R2, which did not pass, which in my opinion means that we need to have a new proposal brought before us for rephasing because the R2 did not pass.
Let me ask a question of the council. Is it the council's intent to approve any proposal other than what's already been approved under preliminary plat?
they're asking me, no.
Okay, I mean, based on the votes and the comments I'm hearing.
May
Is
I
that enough?
interject just a moment?
No, ma'am, unfortunately. Is that enough direction for you, Mr. Ort? Basically what we've said is, there's no proposal you could bring before the council other than what's under preliminary plat that they'll consider.
Correct. He would probably just go ahead and build those 16 lots and the additional 1,300 linear feet of road through the riparian area and 2 additional crossings.
So to, I think, clean this up, I would recommend that the council withdraw their motion and deny the rezoning request.
You mean the rephasing?
Rephasing, yes, excuse me.
Yes.
Then I withdraw my motion.
Mr. Schitt, do you concur? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Levin.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
concur.
Okay,
And I will make a motion to deny the rephasing request.
is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, second by Mr. Ludington to deny the rephasing request for phases 2 and 3 of the Twin Creek subdivision. Council comment. Fingers on the trigger there, Patrick. This is making sure you're okay. Any public comment?
Deborah Buckley, 3593 Sourdough. I would just like to say that if PCI, if you had consulted, if you could tell us who you consulted, the environmental companies.
Let's not get into a dialogue.
No, but I was just
Keep moving.
wondering
No.
if, I mean, saying that this is
Yeah.
environmentally sound, if we had some.
Ma'am, we're just addressing the denial of.
Yeah,
we face.
we just
If you
didn't-
got
It's a moot
If
point.
if
We
you
just-
have questions directly for the developer, I'd suggest you connect with Mr. Ort during the meeting.
Well, I did prior, a month and a half ago, I tried to.
Sure, I understand.
Get
I'm
some
saying tonight,
information.
if you have questions along his ecology comment, then just directly address
But
them.
I was just wondering with the town council, do you have time ever? I mean, do you have anybody to consult on the ramifications of what we're talking about with the water and the wildlife and all?
We require the developer to do that.
But not in, okay.
Any further public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Berthoud?
We're going for denying, right?
So a yes vote denies.
This has been all over the place.
Ms. Berthoud?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington.
Aye.
Councilmember Schurd,
Aye.
and Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes to deny the rephasing request. The next item on your agenda tonight is a consent item. You have several leases for the airport that have been in arrears in terms of approval. There were some renewal clauses, there were some that didn't. Ultimately, it was the airport board's recommendation to bring the slate of leases back to the council. In July. For lease, lease will be 14 cents per square foot. There.
I will make a motion to approve the airport leases.
Second. Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Mr. Schurd to approve Stevensville Airport leases. Council comments or questions?
It's consistent with what's happened in leases in the past, Dean? Is this consistent, the square footage amount? I assume that's why you're here.
Correct.
Okay, and they are consistent with what you've had before?
You know, I don't know. I have my lease agreement here.
Okay. This says 14 cents.
It's increased,
It's increased.
correct? Based on the.
It can't increase more than a half a cent
Okay.
per year.
Okay.
So the way it's structured, as I understand it, and what's been recommended by finance, is there's a clause in the lease that doesn't allow them to increase more than a certain percentage per year. And then when those leases come up for renewal, then they hit, because it's a 20-year lease, then they hit the new rate. So that's where these leases are, as I understand it, is they're all, actually, they're far past renewal. Some of these are like from 2013, so we did a quick reconciliation, some discrepancies, but the lease is the standard lease that we use for all new leases, and the rate is what we charge for new leases as well. Any further council questions or comment? Public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Ms. Berthoud?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Schurd, Beck.
Was that my vote?
No.
A no vote, okay, motion passes 3-1. If we could keep the conversations back down, please, it's a little distracting. The next item on your agenda is 11E, discussion decision on lease agreement for office space at the Stevensville Municipal Airport. In an endeavor to better serve the users at the airport in the aeronautics industry, and having a part-time staff member on staff now to help us manage the airport, we are recommending that we lease a couple of spaces in a T hangar building adjacent to the parking lot at the airport. This includes a bathroom and a lounge, as well as an office space. Currently, there are no public facilities at the airport. So if you fly in and want to use the restroom, you're out of luck. You can borrow the courtesy car and come into town. In addition, by having a staff member at the airport, it provides a number of benefits that I think go without saying, but having a restroom for that individual would also be beneficial. And then of course, a lounge to provide information to people who fly in, or just a break area for them to reset. So we've discussed with the landlord, Taos Properties, who's actually Mr. Perry. He owns the building. At one time, the office space was actually used by the town as office space, and for the airport, what have you. And then that kind of went away, and we're interested in re-engaging that until such time that we utilize a grant that we received from Montana Aeronautics to actually build an administrative space up there. So the intent here is to sustain the lease agreement with a combination of charges for service at the airport, as well as some CARES grant funding that's coming for the airport's benefit as well.
Do you know when we're gonna be shovel ready on that new administrative building that we got the grant money for?
No, I don't. There are some ideas floating around with the airport manager that the town may go for some of its, because the problem was we got part of the funding for the administrative building. We got enough money for the structure, but we didn't get enough money for the infrastructure, including the foundation and all of those other things. So that's obviously problematic. The grant's still there. So there's some discussion about combining that grant with some of our non-primary entitlement and the possibility of building a hangar that the town owns that we would rent. Instead of receiving 14 cents a square foot per year, we would receive, a few to several $100s a month in rent. That would help revenues of the airport and offset operating expenses for an office building. So a preliminary concept is, instead of building just a standalone office building, the possibility of building a hangar with an attached office that the town would own and operate. And then we'd have some revenue to pay for the expenses of the building.
I guess I'm a little confused because I was at the meeting for the for that grant, and it sounded like the intent of it was strictly for like a pilot lounge and flight plan recording station.
That's correct. And since then, the airport boards held some meetings. The airport managers brought some ideas forth, discussed the concept with Montana Aeronautics. And as long as the grant money is used to build some sort of administrative space for the airport's use, and a lounge area for pilots, they don't necessarily care how it happens and what the structure looks like. They want to see us use the funding in that way.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve. What's it called?
The lease agreement.
The lease agreement. Yeah. Didn't know what this one was called today.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Mr. Sherwood to approve lease agreement for office space at the Stevensville Airport. Council discussion? Public comment?
Stacy Barker, 104 Winslet. How much is the lease gonna cost the town for this?
$3,600 a year.
So we're gonna create a place for pilots, which I have a scanner at home. I hear those pilots coming in and out, which are not often. A lot of touch and runs, a lot of people training up there. We're not big. So why are we putting a lounge and gonna have it staffed by an employee of the town up there? It doesn't make sense to me.
The council's edification, a lounge, and Mr. Vick can attest to this, has long been requested by the users at the airport. Not only for, it's not only a space for the users there to utilize in a public way. For example, the volunteer, our airport, is it's no secret, is run by a number of volunteers. And they don't really have a common space where they can congregate and discuss plans as to who's gonna mow Saturday and who's gonna take care of the snow on Thursday. This provides that. It also provides an area for visiting pilots as well, which we've identified as a need for the airport. And, you know, the cost benefit is there to do so.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna say that I guess this is one of the few times that I do agree with you on something. But it is definitely a requested need, especially at the MAA conference last year, when we were awarded the grant to build one. It was very well discussed and unanimous that it was something that's needed, and especially since now that the Hamilton Airport is closed for a very extensive project that's going to take a couple of years, we're going to see increased usage of our airport. I don't know if you guys know or not, but their airport is closed so that they can actually physically move their runways, and that's going to take some time and to have FAA approval and whatnot for their new runways.
Any further public comment or council discussion?
Yeah, I'll say the same things I've probably been saying for years, and I think that it's probably somewhat different now that the airport is part of the town, but you know, the citizens of the town should not be paying this, and I don't think that they are. At least I hope they're not, that this lease payment or whatever improvements are being made up there are paid for by the users of the airport. That's always been the intent of the airport, is that they make their own improvements and keep their place clean, and it's a very nice looking airport. I will say it always has been. So that as long as we're not taxing the residents of the town who don't fly, then I think that this is a good idea.
The funding comes directly from the airport fund, which is only funded through airport user fees. All right, hearing nothing further, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Ms. Berthoud.
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sherman,
Aye.
and Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next on the agenda is discussion decision on the 2021-23 strategic plan. Some time ago, within the last 3 years, we started doing Fifth Friday workshops where any month that had the Fifth Friday, we closed the office and workshopped with staff and council members who were able to attend. And it's been, so I guess right up front, this document is a culmination of those meetings where we've gone through our share of sticky notes, flip charts, and all of the conversations associated with where the organization wants to head. And we've developed this document out of it. It is not overly complicated. It is pretty straightforward. It states the goals of what the administration and staff, combined with the council's input at those meetings, would like to see over the next couple of years. You know, specifically in terms of what those I guess subcategories or sub goals would be under each of the 5 pieces. The other thing that this establishes is a vision statement for the organization. So if we back up to previous councils, there was a lot of conversation or guidance given to us, especially by the local government center at MSU. Mr. Clark would come workshop with us and we would discuss the inner operating dynamics of the town council and the mayor's office and the tension and conflict that existed between those two bodies. And a common theme there was that there was a lack of consistent vision or a lack of common vision between the two branches, and that maybe that needed to be rectified in order for everyone at the table to kind of understand where we were all going. And the other benefit of having something like that is as we change council people, as we change mayors, as we change staff members, there's something for that person to come on, who's coming on board, to look at and say, okay, I at least have a sense of where this organization was heading when I came into the picture. And so for those reasons, we put this document together to kind of formalize the work that's taken place over the last couple of years with council members and staff's input. And so it's before you tonight to provide whatever feedback you'd like to share. If you're willing to approve it and formally adopt the strategic plan, that'd be great. But if you'd like to discuss and continue the conversation, we're willing to entertain that as well. So this kind of ties into our My Sidewalk program as well, where each of these goals and the pieces underneath those goals will have data sets and criteria associated with them and performance metrics. So you'll be able to go to My Sidewalk and you'll be able to see, are we moving towards our goal of a safe and healthy community, or are we not? So what dynamics are helping us achieve that goal or not achieve that goal? So it's obviously a fluid document. We only stuck it in there for 2 years, knowing that it was the first one for us and that it would probably take some fine tuning and some changing. If you approved it tonight and decided to bring it back next month for a tweak or some feedback or revision, it's not going to hurt anyone's feelings. It's a collaborative document. We want everyone as much input as we can.
Yes, I just have a comment. I have participated in, I think I've missed one of these Fifth Fridays. There's been a lot of time and a lot of effort. Mostly, I mean, I think Dempsey came to one. And I think you liked, like it was the first one. But there's been a lot of time put in this. I wish that you all could have seen the process that this took. To be quite honest, I think that it would be a slap in some people's face if we didn't approve it at this time. Given the effort that was put forth for it, given the opportunities that we have been given to participate in this. I 100% support it.
There's a typo.
Is it on the second page?
Yep.
In between and
activities?
It's already been fixed. Thank you. We can actually thank the Parks Department. There's one other, in terms of typos, there's one other piece of feedback that a staff member shared with me, which I thought was incredibly insightful given his limited exposure to this process. He's new to the organization. And that was under number 3, innovative infrastructure. We talk about affordable services. And it says maintain affordable and predictable taxes, rates, and charges for services, limit annual growth of utility rates. The comment I received is that it's very difficult to limit rates. They're inevitably going to increase, and that perhaps a more appropriate word there would be manage annual growth of utility rates and do so responsibly. Is anyone in here opposed to that modification to the plan?
I think manage would be a better terminology used there.
Any further remarks, or?
I'll make a motion to approve the strategic plan.
You can second it if you'd like. Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Mr. Shirk to approve the strategic plan. Council discussion?
Can we put in there instructions on how to use the microphone so Mr. Shirk doesn't have much issue?
He's got a bit of a handicap because he's in a dead zone.
You can add that to the motion.
Is there any further council comment or call for public comment? Public comment on the strategic plan. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Ms. Berghoff? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking faster than my fingers can go.
Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington.
Aye.
Councilmember Sheridan.
Aye.
And Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We will go into executive closed session for litigation and discussion regarding Trubency versus Town of Stevensville. This is pursuant to section 2-3-203 of the Montana Code, specifically subsection 4. So what this means is we will stop the recording, we will stop the live stream. We will ask everyone to leave the room. We will do our executive session with the attorneys, and then we will reverse and go back into a meeting. So you're welcome to stand outside or in your vehicles, and we'll unlock the door when it's back to regular session. It'll take us a few minutes to reconfigure the room so that we can Zoom Mr. Owen and Jill. So we approximate a minute break. No problem. Office.
Not that I know.
He thinks that, when did he expire? Was he one of the 2013 guys?
I don't know.
He was one of the old ones.
Yeah,
I would
it sounded like
assume.
he thinks that
Okay.
we're kind of like rush shot that. We're making a whole new lease. I think he thinks that he's still under a
Okay, so
current
I'm
lease.
making some sense of notes for this, correct?
Oh, well, there was a lot of talk about